What I like. So what's up, world? Back again, once again, for this continuing special programming here at I Mix What I Like. I'm Jared Ball. We got the full Killer Bees squad on with us to talk, to add more context and depth and I think critique to what we see happening in Ferguson, Missouri, in New York with Eric Gardner, in Oakland with Oscar Grant, and so many other incidents. Renisha McBride, even in Detroit, and so many other incidents happening around the country and around the world. Why don't I let both of you introduce our guests, since both of you have particular expertise with our two wonderful guests. Brother Burroughs, why don't you tell us who at least one of our guests is, and then we'll ask Dr. Haight to introduce our other guest.
Thank you. I guess I'm going to be introducing Ramona Africa. Ramona Africa is a member of the MOVE organization. She was one of the two survivors, I believe, of the 1985 MOVE bombing. She has been active in a host of national and international causes, not the least of which is fighting for the freedom and the life of MOVE supporter Mumia Abu-Jamal.
All right.
And we're also joined by Dr. Marva Robinson, a licensed clinical psychologist in St. Louis, Missouri, and also the president of the St. Louis chapter of the Association of Black Psychologists. And I want to note that this is a very critical interview with Dr. Robinson. She's been on with I Mix What I Like before. But a lot of people are having conversations about Ferguson without folks that live in the neighborhoods of Ferguson. So we'll get not just an eyewitness report on what's been happening, but an activist eyewitness report from a psychologist who is making sense to the community of what they're feeling in Ferguson and their responses to the police brutality and the ongoing tragedies that we've seen in the relationship between the black community and the police cops. So welcome back to the show, Dr. Robinson.
Absolutely. Welcome to you both. We greatly appreciate having you on. Ramona Africa, if we could, let's start with you. How do you think it's best to interpret these most recent incidents of police violence against these black people here in the United States? And of course, we could connect this to happenings all around the world. But from your experience and your background, how do you think it's best that we approach this?
Well, I think that we have to have a strong, clear, serious response to such situations. I am not blaming the victim here. I am not ignoring the viciousness, the malevolence of the police force in this country. But I think that the only way to really put an end to this viciousness is for us to take a strong stand that makes it clear that we are not going to tolerate this. As a sole adult survivor of one of the most vicious attacks by the police, a bombing where babies were burnt alive, I know that people were shocked and horrified and did not agree with what was going on, did not like it, even people that were not MOVE sympathizers or MOVE supporters. But there was not a strong action, a strong, clear message after that bombing to let these people know that we are not going to tolerate such things. I mean, Wilson Good was reelected after the bombing. And some people had the audacity to try to tell me how we have to support our first black mayor, despite what happened to me and my family. So there has to be a strong, clear message to those running that this is not going to be tolerated. It is not acceptable, by us. And how to do that, the best way to do that is to never forget, to, confront these people head on. Now, I have not been in Ferguson, But from what I have gathered, reports that I have heard, that has been one of the strongest examples, reactions to, what has happened that I have heard of in a long time. That's my input on it. We have to take the bull by the horns and, make our position clear, because they are not going to stop on their own. They have to be stopped. And these people do not live on Mars or anywhere else. They live on this earth in a community, near us, around us, and we have to do what's necessary. We have to take strong stands, because if we sit back and allow these things to happen and either do nothing or flare up for an instant and then, you don't hear anything, that's not going to work. That is not going to put an end to this kind of, brutality against us. And also, let me just say this. We have a lot of our people, that think they can go into the police force and make a difference, and their relatives and friends, etc., are like proud that they have become a policeman, a police officer, It becomes very clear to people that join the police force, and it happens pretty quickly, that you are not going to change the police force by being in it, by being a police commissioner. You're not going to change the mentality of the police force by trying to, assimilate into it. It's just not going to happen. And it should be clear, because there are more, Black, Latino, women police officers than ever before. But things have not gotten better. They have gotten progressively worse. So obviously, that is not the answer. The people, the masses of people, have to take a strong stand. That's the only solution.
I mix what I like.
All right, you're listening to Ramona Africa of the Mighty Move organization, survivor of state repression to the tune of 1985 bombing, an incendiary bomb dropped from a helicopter on the house, and family members murdered for essentially a way of life that opposed the state, and the state's pushback against that was just absolute, abject violence, imprisonment, murder.
And murder.
And murder, absolutely. So some of the things that you've described about the police repression against MOVE also apply by extension to the Black community of Philadelphia, and MOVE's response to the police force of Philadelphia is similar to what we see in Ferguson, in that folks are very clear about the police position in the community. It is never to protect Black people or Black people's property. In fact, you see it described that Black people just don't own property. They're not homeowners, and so they don't have property to protect in Ferguson. I want to move now to Dr. Robinson. As a psychologist, you, along with in leadership of the St. Louis chapter of the Association of Black Psychologists, immediately responded, recognizing that this event of a murder of a Black man in the community by the police would immediately send a shockwave throughout the Black community in Ferguson. Please take us through some of the initial responses of the chapter of the Association of Black Psychologists in St. Louis, and bring us up to date with what you've seen that the community is experiencing in terms of any of the ways that you would describe it. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for the invitation. Our initial response was to try to make our presence known amongst as many people as possible so that people knew that that the association was present, we were there and willing to help. So we attended a lot of community gatherings. The next morning after Michael Brown was shot, there were several gatherings at various churches and community rallies. So we attended maybe about 3 or 4 of those. At one of those rallies, we were invited by another large community to go out to Canfield Apartment Complex, which was the actual place where Michael Brown was shot, and we were asked to come with them because they were there offering resources, going door to door, being a presence, and we did that. So that's where we started. I think that was maybe by day 3, going door to door, porch to porch, asking individuals if they needed, how they were doing, if they were sleeping, if we could offer any coping skills, and just listening, allowing people to vent, letting them know that they were being heard and seen. And so that started our healing process. And so several of us have opened up hours in our schedule where we offer free services to those needing more intensive ongoing work. And we've hosted wellness workshops in the complex focusing on different types of therapy. You know, we go beyond the office between the 4 walls, and we talk about things like rap lyrics and spoken word and how you can use music as a form of therapy. You know, one of our members is a yoga specialist. We did yoga and talked about different poses and music that you can do to help with the healing process. We talked about holistic approaches to wellness, as well as how to use technology to assist. So we gave out handouts about different apps that you can download to help you track wellness. And so we were, blessed to have so many volunteers. We had a student circle group came down from Mizzou in Columbia, Missouri. We had a psychiatrist, Dr. Monifa Sewell, came from Atlanta, and school psychologist, Dr. Jackie Robinson, came up from Tallahassee. So we all just kind of got together with the local members here and put on some workshops, and we still do take turns going out, checking on residents. That's where I'm just now leaving from, and just seeing how the residents are doing, because we know that things are so extremely tense, and rightfully so. The twists and turns that this case has taken is beyond belief. It's almost like you're standing there wondering if anybody else is hearing what I'm hearing. It's just that shocking at times. You know, the grand jury being presented evidence 1 day a week. Then the grand jury's ability to make a decision being extended until January, when it's freezing cold here in the Midwest. Knowing that Darren Wilson himself testified before the grand jury, which is a very bold move to make. Hearing about witnesses that were key that gave their eyewitness account to national news outlets not being called. So, each day that something like that comes out, it raises the tension that much more. So we, psychologists and mental health specialists are all aware about our role and the need for our presence to be here working with residents, and not just in Canfield, but in Ferguson, abroad, in St. Louis County and city.
I mix what I like.
All right, thank you for that. If I can follow up with that, there's several decades of history that you've had, Mama Ramona, in dealing with how the police work through the media to frame what they would like people to see. What pieces of information would you provide for folks like Dr. Robinson and the communities in Ferguson and St. Louis and Missouri, the black communities at large? What pieces of information and what wisdom would you share about how these twists and turns that Dr. Robinson described are going to try to be framed so that the police are exonerated in this clear case of murder?
You want me to respond, Ramona, right?
Please.
Is that who you're asking?
Please. I'm asking you to share just based off your wisdom in watching how these things play out in the media and how they try to take the power from the community.
Sure. Absolutely. Having experienced it personally, the one main thing that I would, really, just plead with people to do is to just try to think outside the box a little bit. When these cops murder somebody, blatantly murder, and they try to justify it and use the media to try to justify it, just think a little bit. When they came out the Osage Avenue here in Philadelphia and murdered my family, burnt babies alive, dropped a bomb on us, they tried to explain it away by saying, oh, well, there were complaints from neighbors, and we had to deal with the complaints from, Osage Avenue neighbors. Okay. Mover's not saying that, some neighbors didn't have complaints about us. Yeah, okay. Some neighbors had complaints. But if you think a little bit, the question is, when did this government, these officials, ever care about black folks complaining about their neighbors? Since when? We have been complaining since being brought to this country in chains. Have they ever cared about our complaints? Every little, seeming advance that, people think we have. People have fought and marched and, sat in and even died for it. Nothing is ever given to us. These people don't care about our complaints. So to say that the federal, state, and local government got together, planned this attack because they were so concerned about complaints from a handful of black folks on Osage Avenue, was the root of this. It makes no sense. So if you just think a little bit, you can see clearly that what they're saying makes no sense. The other thing is, what they do is they will try to vilify and criminalize the victim, saying, well, they did this and they did that, they robbed this store, they had drugs on them, or whatever they want to say. But the bottom line is, so this is your response that warrants you killing them or beating them bloody and into unconsciousness, whatever it is. It's usually murder, but, whatever. My position is, Moo's position is, whatever they accuse the victim of, you can look in their background and see what they've done, and it's 100 times worse than what they're accusing, the victim of. They had 9 of my family members, well, 8 now because one passed away, in prison, calling them murderers when they know they're innocent, that they're not murderers. But okay, they call them murderers and say, they should be in prison. They call Mumi Abu Jamal a murderer. They say he should be executed, But these same people are the ones that dropped a bomb on my family and burnt babies alive. They don't call themselves murderers, And they killed 11 people at one time, 5 of them babies. So when they throw those insinuations out against the people, against us, we have to learn to point that finger back at them and say, well, if you are accusing us of this, what about what you're doing? What about what you're doing? If you got a problem with murder, then you would apply it across the board. Don't tell us that, the jails are filled with our people and you kill our people down, shoot them down on the street because you accuse them of a crime that you commit almost every day and worse than what this person is doing. We have to learn not to accept the premise that they put out. We can't, interpret things through what our enemy is saying. We just can't do that. We have to learn to think for ourselves and look at things correctly, objectively, honestly. And that's what these people don't want. They think they can just throw some words out there, throw some accusations out there, and that justifies everything they do, and that will, cause people to accept what they do.
I mix what I like. Ramona Africa, we were just sitting here and listening to you recount what happened in 1985, and for all the time that I think I've known about that incident, it never really struck me this way until just now that, there's a lot has been made, and rightfully so, and of course they deserved it, and the attention is deserved, but a lot has been made over the years over the 4 little girls killed in Alabama in 1963, and then here you are describing 5 children, at least 5 children being killed, burned alive, by the police in Philadelphia not that long ago, in 1985, and there's almost been nothing, certainly nothing on the same order has been said or done about it. And my comrade here, Todd, had a really interesting point that I want to ask him to restate here for you, and then we'd like to get your response to that before we go back to Dr. Robinson. But yeah.
And the point I was making was that, of course, the 4 little girls were middle class girls in Sunday school, about to start youth day. I mean, and they were attacked by terrorists, whereas MOVE is a working class movement, controversial movement, and MOVE was attacked by the state. And so there are harsh differences there that we wanted you to comment on.
Oh, absolutely. And let me just say a few things about that. It's a great point that you're making, and I'd like to thank you for that. The first point is that the people that lived in the Osage Avenue area were working to middle class, black people, and a lot of them, not all of them, but some, felt like they had a foothold in the system and was moving on up like the Jeffersons. So this is why, they had a bit more of a problem with MOVE than, say, in Powhatan Village in 1978. That's one thing. The other thing is the point you made about the 4, little girls in Alabama that were killed, blown up by, terrorists, just some, racist terrorist people. They weren't officials as we see them. In 85, the attack on us was by officials, and that should have made people, much more leery and outspoken and outraged, because, either way, people were murdered, okay? But when it's the government, officials doing this, people should have been really frightened into action. that the people who portray themselves as being, those that are the protectors of people, those who are supposed to maintain law and order and justice, etc., that these are the people doing these atrocious terroristic things, that should have really outraged people and made people say, whoa, we can't have this, But I want to say that one of the main things that kind of kept people, kept their anger and everything maintained is because the mayor was black, the first black mayor. And I can prove it because in 78, when Rizzo was the mayor and him and his police force attack move, it was vicious, no doubt about it. But no move people were killed. No move people were killed. And as a result of Rizzo's attack on move, people, black and white, took to the streets and demonstrated and marched on City Hall and said, 4 more years, hell no, Madman Rizzo's got to go. And I mean, they worked hard to maintain the city charter at that time that said a mayor could only run twice. A person could only be elected mayor twice consecutively. Rizzo was pushing at that time to get the charter changed so that he could run again. People worked and fought hard and demonstrated and, turned the city out after the attack on move to make sure that didn't happen and to make sure that their voices were heard and that, people knew that it was known, especially by officials, that they didn't like and didn't agree what was going on and they were angry. You didn't see that kind of reaction in 1985 where moved people and babies were killed. And the reason is, one of the main reasons is because Wilson Good was black. And the clergy, the black clergy, held a vigil for Wilson Good. For Wilson Good, not for the people that had been murdered or even Osage residents who had lost everything, lost all their possessions. No, they had a vigil for Wilson Good, So the point you're making about, that it was officials, it was the government that attacked us is a very good point. And the fact that, the person at the helm at that time was the first black mayor played a big part. Now, I'm not saying, or I should say, some people say, well, he didn't know all that was going on. The police commissioner, Gregory Sanborn, was behind this, and he didn't know what was going on. They misused or whatever. And I'm saying that may very well be true. But when the smoke cleared and people knew what had happened, Wilson Good didn't speak out against it. The first thing he said was he took full responsibility. The next thing he said over and over again was, I don't recall, I didn't know anything about this. He distanced himself from everything. But he never, ever said, I did not know about this. The police commissioner did this and he should be held accountable, or the fire commissioner should have put out the fire, but, he should be held accountable for this. No, none of that. So, in fact, let me say this. He held a national press conference like the day after the bombing, a day or so after the bombing. And he said he would do it again. He said he would do it again. So, you know, the fact that people could hear that kind of thing and he could be reelected and there was not the demonstrations and, you know, people demonstrating their outrage at bombing like they did in 78, it tells you something.
I mix what I like.
Mama Ramona, thank you very much for that. It's powerful to hear you share that as a survivor, because I'm imagining folks on a plantation and trying to elect which overseer is going to beat them.
Yeah.
And the overseer saying, you know, I have nothing to do with this beating, but yet and still you like, I'd do it again. I want to get back with Dr. Robinson. If you can talk about, you know, the psychological state of being of the black community right now, and your own organizational challenges in managing the relationship and service to the community, but also receiving a number of outsiders and not being able to tell necessarily who's there to help the community and who's there to hinder the community from helping itself.
Yeah, that's been a little bit more of an issue more recently than before, because we have come across other organizations saying that they're partnering with us and universities saying that they're collaborating with us, and no one has called me or built any type of a collaborative relationship with anyone in my organization. So we do have to be mindful of where our name is being used and then addressing those individuals head on. So that's been kind of crazy, but most of the community know who we are because we go out into the community. There's not too many of others that are going to leave an office and go door to door or stand in a protest line. So, you know, residents, protesters, community people have been able to identify us because we are there. The sentiment of what we're seeing now clinically varies. It depends on who you're talking to. It varies from fear, a sense of grief and depression and loss, to rage, determination, and motivation to see a change. The tagline and the phrase I use most to describe what's going on here in Ferguson is that this is not a moment, but it's a movement. Everyone here is determined to make sure that the world doesn't forget that we're here. And even if CNN or CBS never comes to Ferguson again, we are here. The residents are here. I'm looking at protesters out right now across from the police department and the fire station. And this is an everyday thing. So it's important for us to also let the world know that although you may not see it on the news, that this has not died down by any means. And so it's that frustration with, you know, but maybe the world thinks that we've forgotten about it, or, you know, maybe things won't turn out the way that we're hoping that it will. So a lot of, you know, frustration from a lot of that. And so it's a little bit of a balance to work with. You have to meet people where they are. Don't try to change the essence of who they are, but do a lot of reflective listening and, you know, and try to help where you can and where you're allowed to help. But the response that we've been getting has been great. Everyone has had, you know, several reach outs for pro bono services, ongoing therapy. We've done a lot of group work. So it's been a little bit of everything down here in Ferguson. It's very much alive. It's very much still active. It's on the hearts and minds of everyone every day that they wake up. So the struggle is very much real and very much still active here.
Sister, this is Ramona, Africa. I really appreciate you, and I would really love for you to let the people that you're in touch with know that I and my MOVE family are so proud of them, and you. Okay. You know, we are so proud that people are standing up for themselves, sending a strong message. I mean, that does my heart good, because what it's saying, what it's showing me and showing everybody else is that people are understanding that we are our saviors. There is no one person or group or whatever out there that can be our savior. We are our saviors. And, you know, what you've been talking about in terms of the people there in Ferguson, I am so proud. It does my heart good.
Thank you. Yeah. And it's been a huge rally of local support, and we've been open to other support as well. I mean, you know, St. Louis chapter of ABPSI isn't, you know, doing, you know, we're just one organization, but we've partnered and collaborated with several other organizations that have been here on the ground as well. You know, OBS, you know, Organizer for Black Struggle, Dream Defenders. So there's times the clergy comes out. I mean, there's been a lot of different groups. So, you know, different organizations get together, you know, us, you know, even the Black social workers. We had a town hall together back in August. Everyone's figuring out how we can best work together to address the needs. There has certainly, without a doubt, been a significant amount of psychological trauma and damage to this community. And then when you talk about people who may have already been struggling with some things beforehand, this has just brought a lot of things to the surface and have exacerbated all kinds of symptoms. So, you know, even the things that we see in the everyday clinics has been more severe than what we would normally get. So, you know, there's a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, a lot of trauma, but definitely also a lot of motivation and determination to not just let this thing quietly go away.
That is great. That is wonderful.
And on that notion, I mean, we've seen, you know, the question I was asking is really in relationship to people who are self-appointed or state-appointed leaders of black people that have never had contact with the black communities in places like Philadelphia or Ferguson, right? So specifically, like, you'd get people like Al Sharpton who would come out there and say, you know, let us have a role here, or, you know, there's video footage of people confronting Jesse Jackson for what he's doing and saying you're not even marching with the people, you're just out here and you're not going to be here when the cameras leave, right? So there's the challenge of saying, you know, we don't want people who are trying to capture the spotlight for their own benefits and recognizing what is sincere, honest extension of support, resources, love, affirmation from folks who aren't inside the colony of Ferguson and St. Louis. So what then can people do to support the work that you're doing in St. Louis ABPSI and what the people are doing in Ferguson and beyond? How can we support what kind of things are needed aside from, you know, another person going there for the revolutionary tourism? Like, I went to visit the Mayans and the Zapatistas for like a minute, and then I came back and I was the expert and I wrote a book, and now you should, you know, listen to me rather than listen to the people. What can we do? What can we do if we want to make some honest support efforts?
Well, to speak to the first thing, the population, and especially the youth here, are very, very tuned into who's coming to grandstand and who's coming to help. So things like Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, it's a twofold. The support that they bring is the fact that they also bring a lot of other celebrity power that made very, very generous donations to college funds and to the Brown family. And they also brought the national media attention. And so that has helped to broadcast the message that people are here, we are protesting, we're not letting this go. These are some of the concerns and the issues that we have. And this, Mike Brown is one example of what goes on in St. Louis County every day. So, you know, that's the one end. The other end is, you know, you do have a lot of youth that say, but where are you now? When are you coming back? And so it can it can be a little tense at times, and they do challenge those leaders.
Now, Dr. Robinson, let me just. I know you're filtering the sentiments of the youth here, but I want you to give it to us like the youth is saying it. What are the youth expressing in those moments?
Yeah, if you can come here and take a picture, or you come in here to make a speech, when are you coming back? What are you going to do? How are you going to help us? Are you going to come back? Don't just come here to political grandstand and then leave. But the youth are also saying, whether if you come or not, I'm still going to be here. And so that's why you have so many movements, so many protesters out to this day. They come out every single day. There's one group called the Lost Voices that have left their homes, set up tents on West Forest, and that's where they live 24/7 so that they can protest 24/7, because their life mission now is to seek justice. And they're not leaving until they see some justice being done. So, that's the sentiment. What people can do nationally, we get this question a lot, is stay aware of what's going on. Use social media to make sure that your parts of the world and your corners of the states are aware of what's going on here in Ferguson. Make sure that in your own communities that you register people to vote. Stay tuned in to the news and what's going on here. Stay abreast of what's happening to the case, because we need people abroad to be just as invested in this as we are here. And then if people, some people do come anyway to help, and no one is shaming anyone for that. But when people do come, it's, don't just come and take a picture by the memorial site, but are you offering to help? Are you going to help protest? Which organization are you going to help to support with resources? Did you bring a case of water? So it's those things too. Not that anyone here is saying outsiders should stay away, or at least that's not what I've been hearing. Everyone is saying here, the more voices, the more hands, the more awareness. But definitely expecting people to also do their part, whether if it's here in Ferguson or abroad.
So let me just say that this is I've been in AB Psi since 1998, and this is probably the proudest moment I've had of being an AB Psi member, when I've seen a chapter step up immediately to the needs of the community without being told to do so. So, I honor you, and I'm proud to say I'm a comrade and all of those things that we might say if we weren't speaking Russian, right? And I also want to acknowledge and apologize to Mama Ramona for the absence of AB Psi in the midst of the ongoing struggles with the MOVE organization in Philly. I know we have a strong Philly chapter, and I've been in contact with them, and I feel like there should have been more done, and there should be more done.
Let me just stop you right there and let you know that May 13th of next year marks 30 years since the bombing, and we're doing a major program because, we don't ever intend to let people forget. We do something every year, have done, something every year about the bombing of our family. But this 30-year commemoration is going to be huge. People are coming from out of the country and across the country. So depending on, people's situation at that time, we're encouraging people to be here in Philadelphia and have your voices heard. We understand clearly that won't be possible for, some people. But for those that it is possible, we want you here. We want to see your face, It's plenty of time, plenty of advance notice to try to raise necessary funds that people might need to get here. But that's something that people can keep in mind.
And let me just follow that up with saying, our news journal is called the Psych Discourse in the Association of Black Psychologists. Dr. Todd Stephen Burrows is on the editorial staff, and we will open up the news journal to have a special topic on the commemoration of one of the worst acts of terrorism that we've seen against the black community within the U.S. and the MOVE bombing. And so, we will dedicate as many words as we need to express the horrors that have occurred on that date, the decades over, before and after. And we would, invite you and whoever you think would be good of African ancestry to submit any articles that would help publicize and advertise the upcoming events for May 13th. So that spring issue can be special topic. We will cover the MOVE bombing and beyond.
Okay, great.
And it's also important for me to make sure, and I'm so glad that you're proud of us, but I am one person of a team. And so we have several members that have been extremely active. Just so happens at this time I am the chapter president, but I have been amazed and surprised and proud of the response and reaction of all of our local members here on the St. Louis chapter of AB Psi, and we get constant immediate feedback from the national office as well. So, I'm certainly one member of a team, and so we have felt that this is our community, these are our brothers and sisters, and so we wouldn't dare allow or wait for another organization to come in and apply what they feel is appropriately mental health interventions to our people when we know better. So it's been more of a calling and a servitude than a job for us.
Mm-hmm.
Mama Ramona Africa, Dr. Marva Robinson, thank you both very much for joining us. We greatly appreciate your contributions to this program that we're putting together, and of course, more than that, to the contributions you've made to all of us and your continued good work. So great, thank you very much again, and we'll see you in the whirlwind. Peace to you both. We greatly appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate being here. On the move. I appreciate being here.
All right.
And can we get one MF for Sister Pam?
These motherfuckers are That's for my sister Pam.
There you go. Thank you very much.
That's going to be the title of the
Okay,
article.
now on the move.
All right. Take good care,
strong.
people. All right. Thanks a lot. Peace.
I mix what I like.